Hello, my name is Jim. This is my podcast, The Bloody Vegans. You're very welcome to it. Each week I'll be travelling ever deeper into the world of veganism, discovering along the way a multitude of viewpoints from the political and ethical to the practical. I'll be doing this through a series of conversations, each aiming to further illuminate my understanding and hopefully yours of all things plant-centric. And this week is no different. This week I'm going to be chatting with the hosts of the Heavens Devils podcast, a podcast dedicated to all things Forest Green Rovers, and in fact, a podcast that is now the official podcast of Forest Green Rovers. For folks who don't know, Forest Green Rovers have been described as the greenest football club in the world. They're the first and only vegan football club and the first to be certified as carbon neutral by the United Nations, no less. So we're going to be chatting about all things Forest Green Rovers. How did two New Yorkers come to support them, and what were they doing travelling all the way from New York to Nailsworth? So we'll get into all of that. So without further ado, here's a conversation between me and Nathan and Shyam, the hosts of the Heavens Devils podcast. So Nathan, Shyam, returning guests, amazing to have you here, and in the flesh as well.
Yeah, exciting to finally meet you, James.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
It's pretty crazy all the way from New York. For folks who don't know, how did you both get into veganism, and why are you here?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I guess we can talk about the veganism part first, and then So on the veganism front, I don't know. I probably 8 or 9 years ago, I read an article in the New Yorker, I think, or something about compassionate consumption, and that's kind of the first thing that ever opened my eyes to the idea is that like animals can suffer, and that they are suffering at our hands. And so anyway, that sent me down a vegetarian path.
Yeah.
I actually wasn't vegetarian for a while, even after believing I should be, but I started reading more about it, and I was like, I should really need to stop eating meat. And so I became a vegetarian. I didn't. I was still eating meat, but believing I should stop eating meat. I was out for dinner or lunch with my girlfriend at the time, now wife, and we were both eating meat, and I was like, questioning on it, like, why do you think this is okay? Interrogating her, and she's like, I think you're right. And so she stopped eating meat. Right. So I was like, oh my God, I got to stop too. So I became vegetarian, 5-6 years ago. And I always felt like being vegan was the right thing to do. Yeah. But I don't know why I just never did it. And then Shyam and I started following Forest Green Rovers, which I guess is the connection here. And we'll talk about that in a second. But from following Forest Green Rovers, obviously the world's first vegan club, all vegan club, that it just kind of pushed us over the edge, right? And that was like the straw that broke the camel's back, and like said, like, let's do it. Let's just go all in. Let's become vegan. So we actually tried it during Veganuary, which I know Veganuary gets like a lot of stick from vegans, but for us it was like really the gate. Well, the thing that got it started, and we haven't looked back. So we've been vegan now for a year and a half. No, not a year and a half. Whatever. A year and however many months it is since January. Yeah.
We're delirious. We've been in the UK for about a week, but we just have no idea what's up or down, which side of the road to drive on.
Or walk.
Yeah, so we're just happy to be alive. But, being alive and having the animals be alive is a really important thing for the two of us. Yeah. Like that segue.
That was a segue.
Part of our friendship before the podcast stemmed from this idea that we were both vegetarian. I myself grew up in a Hindu household. So it was a religious and cultural thing growing up where we just didn't eat meat. Even at home, my mother wouldn't cook with eggs. So, this restriction, and growing up in the United States, especially where Nathan and I are from, we're from the Midwest of the United States. And man, that's like meat country. Mm-hmm. Like people love their barbecues. They love game day, going to like an NFL game or watching a college football game.
It would be unthinkable to have a meal without meat. Yeah. Every single meal has to have meat, and multiple kinds of meats in many cases.
Yeah. So we were surrounded by it from a young age. But for myself, I had that family and cultural vegetarianism connection, and then finding other people that have similar beliefs was good. And then the more I interrogated it myself, it's like, okay, I've just accepted it and it's my way of life, but why am I really doing it? I wanted to be
Right.
purposeful. And Forest Green Rovers, because Nathan and I are both big football fans as well. It kind of just brought everything together. Our love of sport, being good Midwestern boys, our love of football in particular, and then just the unknown. Like, we're both pretty curious guys. So we're like, what is this club with these insane kits? Like, the zebra pattern, like neon green. And so, that all is just mixed together, and we started the podcast.
So 18 months being vegan, and you both live in New York currently. How's that been? How have you found things over there from a veganism standpoint in those last 18 months?
Yeah, not bad. There's some excellent vegan restaurants, but I don't think there's enough of them yet. But the nice thing is, like, most places, even if they're not vegan, are offering some kind of vegan option for everybody. So it's not bad. But we're here right now in the UK, and this is my first time here and Shyam's first time here, I guess, as a vegan. I've been blown away by how far ahead the UK is in terms of vegan food options relative to the US. So we have a lot of room for improvement in the US, but there's stuff out there in New York, but it has a lot of room for growth.
I arrived in the UK slightly disheveled, which we may discuss later.
We will.
And as soon as I got on, I took the Heathrow Express to Paddington, and the first thing I was able to eat was actually Marks and Spencer, little vegan 5-spice, Chinese not duck little wrap. So I was like, wow, the fact that even though this is probably not the healthiest thing, it's ready made, but the fact that there's a vegan option I could just grab, that's something you still don't find in the United States. Like, especially New York City, it's a little bougie, like you're going to have a fancy vegan night out, or you're going to have to kind of pay a premium for it.
Right.
So, yeah, we've been really surprised and a little bit shocked that the ability to choose to be vegan, even on a smaller scale day to day, seems to be a bit easier here.
Yeah. I mean, I would definitely want to dial into those differences in a little bit, but it'd be great to understand what's brought you both over here. Obviously, we talked Forest Green Rovers, so I'd imagine that's the driving force. But what's brought you both over to the UK, and how did you get here? Which is definitely a leading segue, particularly for you, Shyam.
Yeah,
but I'll probably let Nathan do the more straightforward version of this story first.
Yeah, so I'll talk about what brought us over here, and then Shyam,
I'll hold back the tears. I got my sobbing out of the way now, just thinking back on my trip, so I can be coherent. Yeah, go ahead, Nate.
We started this podcast covering the Forest Green Rovers at the beginning of last season, so this is our second season doing it. We started it. We learned about the club. I learned about it 4 or 5 years ago. Shyam probably 3 years ago. We learned that it was like the greenest club in the world, which was really important to us. That's a really important value to us off the pitch. And then we learned that it's a vegan club, which is also something that's really important to us in terms of the animal welfare aspect. And so once we found out there's this club out there that does all this great stuff that we think is so important, we were like, if we're going to give our time and money to a sports team, let's do it towards a team that is actually, doing good in the world, a team that we can root for on and off the field, on and off the pitch. So that's how we started following. And then during COVID, we just had some free time, and just sent Shyam a text and said, hey, dude, you want to just buy all the FGR streams and make a podcast documenting the experience of two dumb Americans learning about this club?
And part of it is also that we came across the dumb fact that a majority of beers are vegan.
Right.
So it's
It's an excuse to drink beers and
because there's always this association of veganism with you must be into health food, you must be extra into fitness and stuff like that. It's no, we just like drinking beer. We thought it was hilarious. We could just drink beer and be vegan and follow this club.
We started following, and anyway, we're in our second season following the club, and we've been dying to get over here, but obviously we couldn't last year because of COVID. And so, the stars aligned for us work-wise, and we were able to take this week off and come over to the UK and catch 3 Forest Green Rovers games, 2 of the men's games and 1 of the women's games. And it's just been an incredible experience for me from start to finish. For Shyam,
No, I think incredible is the right adjective for me too, because I hardly believe. At times, I've hardly believed I'm here. In fact, at times I've thought maybe I'm just lying dead in a ditch or next to the airport somewhere, and this was just been my hallucination, the last hallucination before I leave this mortal plane. But it's been awesome. So it's been a great trip.
So we've alluded to it. What happened, Shyam? Tell us a story.
Well, the COVID pandemic giveth and it taketh away. So the reason we're here, the reason we started the podcast was because of COVID, as Nathan mentioned. Is our way to kind of channel some energy and our passions into something that we were really cared about. And it's led to these great connections and this opportunity, as Nathan mentioned. But it also means we weren't really traveling. I had no inkling of traveling over the past 2.5 years. So, we booked the tickets. Everything's all good. We're set to go. We were supposed to get in here last Thursday. And so all the tickets are set. Nathan's good to go. On Tuesday night, I find it the right time to take a look at my passport. Because, hey, this is a good time to start packing. Maybe I'll just grab my passport and take a look at it. And little did I know it had expired in April 2021. Yeah.
Less than 2 days before your flight.
Less than 2 days before my flight, yeah. I realized I had an expired passport. Out of sight, out of mind. I hadn't used it since 2017. Last time I'd used it, I had several years left on it. I'm like, I'm good. I was not good. So, my heart sank in that very moment. I basically had one day before I was meant to fly out to try to arrange an emergency passport. And it was insane. Actually, wasn't able to do it in one day, so I had to push my itinerary to arrive on Sunday instead of Thursday, and so that bought me an extra day to try to just make the impossible happen.
So what did it involve? You had to leave New York, and where did you have to go?
Yeah, London, a beautiful world city. New York, a beautiful world city. You can travel between them quite easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
6-hour flight.
6-hour flight.
Easy.
6 hours, yeah.
Easy peasy. Have your meal, you're good to go. Or your vegan meal on the plane. But I wanted to take the scenic route. So I had to travel all the way to El Paso, Texas, which is the only passport agency office that would grant me an appointment to get an emergency passport because I was traveling within 2 weeks.
So there are others, but it was just that they're the only ones who can fit you in.
Yeah, there's one right there in New York City. Right. I could take the train directly there, but they just had no appointments. I was, that night after I found out my passport expired, I was peppering this hotline the next day. I must have called them 30 times, 35 times, just getting the same people saying, I need an appointment in New York, and typing it up. Answering the same question. It was like Groundhog Day. I was going insane by the end of the day. Answering the same questions about my itinerary, my, confirmation number, everything like that. Knowing that I'll never forget how much it costs to get an expedited passport. It's $60. Because they have to warn you each time. You do realize you have to pay $60 to... And I'm like, yes, I know. At first, at the end of it, I was like, I'm going to pay you the $60. Just tell me. Just tell me that it's available. But, they couldn't help me out. And I ended up texting Nathan. You remember what I texted you or how I felt, right? What was it like getting that text from me?
It was awful. I was heartbroken because I was like, oh my God, Shyam's not coming with me. My pod partner, my buddy, we're not this is for us. It's supposed to be, our inaugural trip together to Forest Green.
And not just any trip. These are meaningful matches for the club because they can be promoted to League One. Yeah. They're on the cusp.
Right. So I was crushed to get that message. You didn't get the message. You told me, the night before. So I was like, there's no way Shyam's coming to England. Crushed. And then what happened, Shyam?
Then, just, I was like, man, there's no way I can do this. I can't do it. I was crestfallen. And then I got to give a huge shout out to my wife, Christina, because she just saw how bummed out I was, how mopey I was. And she was like, you know what? Why don't you call him back and see if there's an appointment, and go. And so I called the hotline back, and they're like, okay, and because before when I'd called them, they're like, okay, the New York office is full, but I can get you an appointment in Honolulu, Hawaii, or San Juan, Puerto Rico. It's just like, what? No, I can't go there. That's impossible. But really from her encouragement, she was just like, you got to give it a shot. She was like, I know how much this means to you and to Nathan. You guys have worked so hard on the pod to build these relationships. So it could, no, tomorrow's never promised, right? This could be a once in a lifetime experience. So just, you should try your best. And so I called them back, and there we go. I got my El Paso appointment. Just now I had to struggle to find a 10-gallon hat. I just wasn't, sartorially, I was not prepared for Texas. That was my next crisis. But yeah, it was just wild.
So New York to El Paso back to New York, then New York to, or was it, there wasn't any done?
That would be too easy, James. No. We didn't do it that way. So due to the kind of last minute nature of it, I had to fly from New York to Houston, and then Houston to El Paso, which, again, if people don't realize how large the U.S. is, to drive from Houston, Texas to El Paso, Texas, one is on the east, the other's on the west, it's like an 11.5-hour drive. It's
same
insane.
state.
So it's a 2-hour flight just to get from one end of Texas to the next. So I had to connect. Late at night on Thursday. So instead of flying to the UK, I was heading the wrong direction, the other direction. And but you know what? I was like, I had that spirit in me. I'm giving it my best. We're gonna do it. Got to the airport well early, made my gate and everything in New York. We pushed away from the gate right on time to get in around 8:00 to catch a connection an hour later to El Paso. And what happens? We get stranded on the runway due to a weather system for 90 minutes. For 90 minutes, nothing I can do. I can't get off the plane. The only way I can go is up. But we're grounded for 90 minutes, and I see that connection just vanish. And so, man, that was probably the most stressful 3.5 hours of my life. There were children and families on board, so I was doing my best not to go viral on YouTube, to keep it together. But I was dying on the inside. Man.
Because the catch is his appointment was in El Paso at 9:30 a.m. the next day. So if he missed his flight in Houston, he would lose the appointment, and game over again.
Yeah.
We'd be screwed again.
Wow.
Yeah, and so, but they, at the end of the flight, they're like, you know what? There are certain people that have to connect. I had 10 minutes to connect. Like, have people, so please let them off first. I was one of the first people. I was sprinting down that. I've never run so fast in my life, man. It was crazy. I tripped over the escalator, fell down. People were concerned for me, like, what's going on? I was like, it's okay. I got to go. And just kept going. Ran for my life. But when I got to the gate, plane was gone. So again, hopes are dashed.
You're
stuck in Houston. Like, no hotel, nothing. My appointment's 9:30 the next morning. This is like 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So I just have like no idea what to do. So I sleep at the terminal because all the airline shall remain unnamed, but all they offered me was a $50 coupon for a hotel. Nice. So I was like, yeah, nice. Customer service. There you go. But it was just, I had no idea what to do. And by that time, that hotline was closed. So couldn't get another appointment. Had to find a way to get to El Paso. So they automatically rebooked me the next day. But then I find out the flight is at noon, well past the appointment.
Yeah.
So I wake up disheveled in the airport, call the hotline first thing that they open. Say, hey, I need an appointment. I have this. They're like, I'm sorry, there's nothing in El Paso later in the day. Sorry, we can't help you. If you miss 9:30, you miss it. If you miss it, you miss it. And so I really think this is the last one. We've had the ups and downs, but I was like, there's no way I'm out of this one. I can't get to El Paso within 2 hours. It's, from 7 in the morning. And so I'm basically on the verge of tears, and I call my wife, who, again, shouts to her, man. Just the most positive, clear-thinking person. She was like, well, why don't you try the hotline and see if they have a Houston appointment? And I was like, okay, I guess so. Like, just totally bummed out. But I was like, you know what? Let me just try. She's right. Just let me say I tried my best, even though I'm going to miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity of being there with my pod bro, Nathan. So I call him up, and then who answers the phone? My guardian angel. My guardian angel, Larry. Larry at the passport agency. He lets me know there's a 9:30 appointment at the Houston office. It's like 7:40 in the morning at this point. Again, I'm just like peppering the hotline.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, very calmly say, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate the help. Hey, that's great. Hang up the phone, sprint out of the airport, hop into a car, and go right to the passport agency. And then by 10 a.m., I had my receipt for a passport. So then I said, even though I had to go to El Paso, I didn't make it there for the passport. But the airline wouldn't let me change the flight. So I had to go to El Paso anyway for no reasons. But In case you're ever there, James, bomb vegan tacos.
Great
in
vegan
El Paso.
tacos, El
Great vegan
Paso.
tacos. If you ever find yourself in El Paso tacos, there's a place called Lick My Plate. Okay, maybe not getting the best health code, rating,
Yeah.
but bomb vegan tacos. So I go there for no reason other than vegan tacos. Then go to Denver, New York, and finally make it here to be with you today. It's crazy.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
All the way to El Paso for some vegan tacos.
Yeah. Listen, that's how dedicated I am. That's why you were having us on this podcast.
Yeah, that's
how dedicated I am
that's
to the
a dedication. Just to bring us that review of those tacos.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm impressed.
Yep. Man,
Lick my plate.
Yeah, I just can't believe that all of this has happened. It's been an incredible week since being in the UK.
So where have you talk us through? Where have you guys been since you've been over in the UK? You mentioned obviously you've seen your perspective is that the veganism over here is much further along.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked electric vehicles and all kinds of environmental things as well, and you felt like everything's been a bit further along. But where have you been, and what have you seen that's kind of led you to that conclusion?
Yeah, so we were in London first. Or actually, we weren't. I was in London while Sean was in El Paso, Texas, trying the vegan tacos.
Trying those tacos.
I was in London, and man, I was there for the weekend basically, and like everywhere. Like I just put it in Google vegan, and everywhere there was just like a million vegan restaurants that popped up, and so like I had I was spoiled for options. So every meal I ate, breakfast, lunch, and dinner at a different vegan spot, both Friday and Saturday. Sunday we came out to this little town called Stroud, which is very close to where our club is located, Forest Green. It's a tiny little village, but again I was curious, so I just searched vegan, and they were like 15, 20 vegan restaurants, vegan, purely vegan, like
village.
Not restaurants with vegan options, but like actually pure vegan restaurants in this tiny little village. I was like, this has to be the most vegan restaurants per capita in the world. It was mind-blowing. And then they even had vegan fish and chips. Like what? So anyway, blown away by the vegan options in Stroud. We are now here recording in Bristol, and Bristol also seems to have incredible vegan options. We just had amazing pizza, vegan pizza. So yeah, I'm just blown away. Every place we've been, just incredible vegan options.
And other than M&S and Paddington, have you had much chance to experience much of the same as Nathan yet, Shyam?
A little bit. I mean, so finally made it on Monday. So we spent a lot of time with the club, and so the hospitality of the club has been great. They serve all vegan food at the ground. Mm-hmm. So we got to experience that, and that was really nice. A guest you've had on before, Jade, who's also been a guest on our podcast. She happened to be at the ground as well.
Yeah.
I know she's kind of returning to a role at the club. So yeah, I mean, that was delicious food that we experienced at the new lawn. And then, we went to a couple places. We had vegan fish and chips, right, in Stroud. We tried that. We went over to the Supporters Club's chairman's house, and they had cooked an entire vegan meal, vegan lasagna with like a traditional pie with like root vegetables and stuff.
Yeah,
in it.
Amazing.
So So we've had
eaten
homemade.
Good.
I've had the M&S. And with you, James, we had a very nice
the pizza was awesome.
fancy pizza lunch at
I was just gonna say, like, no offense, James, but you don't think of England and food. It's not the first place you think of for food culture, but I gotta say the food has been unbelievable. Like the vegan food, unbelievable.
It's got this reputation. I feel like it's a little unfair, actually.
Yeah, I agree.
Right,
After being here, I 100% agree.
Yeah, I think it's probably from a past era.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a bit of a hangover, that reputation that English food's not very good. I think actually it's like any multicultural kind of city like London, I'm talking specifically here. And actually the same for Bristol. They're packed with options from around the world, so many choices. And like, as you say, vegan options now as well. And particularly those two cities, I think, are wonderfully well equipped from a vegan point.
Absolutely. And we were lucky enough to catch a championship match at Craven Cottage in Fulham when we were in London. And just, we went out to the pub close by before.
Like a supporters club close by that, you wouldn't expect. It's not vegan at all. And they had vegan options.
They had a vegan option for us.
They only had 3 options on the menu, and one of them was vegan. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, it's really becoming a huge part of the culture here, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. It's amazing to hear. So I think sometimes we can get in our bubble of what's around and can think, well, that perhaps things aren't progressing that fast. But actually, I think if I think about London, maybe 5, maybe 10 years ago, maybe longer, and then Bristol and so on, those options weren't there. A lot of those, like the place we went to today, we were talking about Puret's. The pizza places 4 restaurants now across the UK, and has become quite a name. And there's loads of places like that. So it's great to see it kind of burgeoning. Is there? You mentioned it being a bit bougie in New York from the sort of comparative options. Are there kind of those options, like in terms of the restaurants like we were talking about, or is it more the kind of prepared end of the more basic stuff?
Yeah, I think for me, at least in my experience, it's been more the restaurants where you kind of go and they marketed it as having a culinary experience, and you're having it. You can get prepared meals that are vegan. There's like frozen aisles, and I think in the past couple of years, really like because as we mentioned, we're Midwest boys. And Americans just love their meat, man. They love their hot dogs and their hamburgers and stuff. Like Beyond Meat and Impossible has kind of really come on the scene. Some of the big chains over there, like Burger King, made an Impossible Whopper. A few different places. I think even KFC did like a Beyond chicken nugget over there. Yeah. So we're seeing it in different areas for sure.
It's definitely growing. Yeah, even since the last time we talked, it's actually there's way more options have developed for that aren't fancy dining establishments in the city. So everything's headed in the right direction, and not just New York. Like, I'm from a very small town in like hillbilly country, USA, and even there, there's starting. You'll never no vegan restaurants, but there are starting to become more vegan options at restaurants that I would have never dreamed of as a child, or even a year ago, 2 years ago.
You guys have got like super close, obviously, to the club, and you've mentioned that they're kind of their ethical position, their environmental stance, their veganism has all been part of that journey. In fact, pretty instrumental in your involvement with the club. Have you seen? Admittedly, it's from a limited experience so far, but you've been to another football ground, and you're very immersed in the football culture, at least, and sporting culture. You're really interested across the gamut of sports and so on. Have you seen them kind of actually having ripples in terms of what they're doing with other clubs, with other sports, maybe other countries? What's your experience been like of being close to the club and seeing what they're achieving?
Well, yeah. Let me just first speak on like the impact they're having on supporters, because that's been something that's Dale Vince, the chairman, the owner, always talks about. The goal, one of the goals of the club, is to make football fans also fans of the environment, and then also find fans of the environment, make them fans of football. But the first one seems like a big challenge, something that you wouldn't expect. Like, but so we had the fortunate opportunity to meet a bunch of fans from Forest Green, a lot of like traditional, working class, great people, but people who, grow up in meat culture and were at the club long before Dale, and are people who, I don't know, maybe I guess it's a stereotype, but in my ignorance, I would expect them to not, be kind of poke fun at vegans, just like all these other clubs do.
Meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've become vegan, or if not fully vegan, like partially vegan, and they try to be vegan as much as they can. And it's a crazy thing to see that the club has actually impacted its own fan base. And I'm talking about fans who came not because, fans who were locals who support the club because it's their community club, not because of the green stuff and the vegan stuff. But the club has impacted them. It's impacted players as well. We know 4 or 5 players on the team are vegan now because of the club. And then, outside of it, we know that it's influenced other clubs, but at the same league and below, we know that the club has served as a consultant for other clubs trying to become more vegan friendly, trying to become more green. So it's definitely having an impact. And I think as they progress up the leagues, which is looking like they're going to do, that impact will get amplified, and there'll be more opportunity to help.
Yeah, and I'll just add real quick too, and I guess a club like Manchester United or Arsenal will never admit it, But I think we have seen Forest Green sort of take the lead on putting sustainability up front. Not just having it be greenwashing. And it seems like other clubs have really taken to that. And it's great to see a huge Premier League club that has international clout and name recognition take steps to emulate things that a club like Forest Green Rovers has done.
From what you've seen, you mentioned the supporters there and kind of Dale's vision of getting them to fall in love with the environmental aspects as well as supporting of their local team and things like that. When I sort of go around the club, I've been a few times, and you see the messaging around the club, and it goes way beyond dietary sort of plant-based diets. It's talking about climate change. It's talking about animal welfare. It's talking about much broader terms. Are you seeing that level of kind of understanding, like there being a real depth of understanding of veganism as opposed to plant-based diets, in sort of supporters and your contacts with them and players even?
Yeah, it's a mix. Some of the players and some of the supporters we've talked to have become vegan for health reasons. But others we know for a fact have become vegan because of the animal welfare stuff. And It's awesome. Like one person I'm thinking of is like Don Bernard. It's awesome to see how the club has really changed hearts and changed minds. And I can think of a few supporters that we had, like just anecdotally, but a few supporters who have said the same thing, that because they follow the club, they didn't follow the club for this reason, but because they follow the club, they've been exposed to these new ideas, and these new ideas have then shifted their behaviors. I know Seaspiracy too was a huge one. All the players watched Seaspiracy. The club had a role in that, and I know Seaspiracy definitely had an impact on a couple of the players also that we talked to in terms of changing their behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the influence is there, and I think it is beyond. I think in the U.S., not that it's taboo, but it's just meat is so ubiquitous, so common, that you feel like if you're going to have a conversation or dialogue, maybe leading off with the animal welfare part of it, which is so crucial to the lifestyle and the belief, is that's going to be something that alienates someone, or that's going to be something that causes you to be maybe marginalized in a conversation. So it's always tricky, but we know you just have to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
And that's what's so unique about FGR, because they're doing this in this realm of sports. And, again, when you think of English football, you think of the traditional pies and your pint, and maybe not someone that's tuned into animal welfare. They, hey, you want to just watch the game, right?
Yeah.
But as something that's so integral to so many people's lives in this both in this country and internationally, the sport of football, to be able to also bring that other perspective into it has been really eye-opening for us, and that's why we're so into it and have followed it so deeply.
I like that point too, because I feel like the club is, like you said, you don't want to alienate people. You don't want to make people feel like they're bad people. Like, I mean, I was a meat eater before, and I don't consider myself a bad person.
Nathan was a bad person for other reasons.
Yeah, there we go. But so you don't want to guilt people into being vegan, because I don't know. Myself, I just wasn't aware of animal suffering until I was, and then once I was, it was like, oh my God, how could anyone ever eat meat? This is awful. This is, and so football, Forest Green Rovers, is just a great way to introduce people to that concept without being judgmental, giving them their own time and space to come to the conclusion themselves that this is the right, lifestyle.
Do you think it's a blueprint for sporting clubs in the US? Do you think that is almost the Trojan horse to helping many people in sort of US society, that particular demographic who are very sporty and into their athletic pursuits and so on? Do you think the model that Forest Green have set is replicable over in the States?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's just it's so tough. Like the one thing about the U.S. is money talks, right? And part of the reason we love Forest Green Rovers is because beyond, the sustainability of the environment and stuff, we feel like even as a football club, their project is to sustainably rise through the football pyramid, right? It's to get where they want to go to ultimately maybe be a championship level team. But yeah, in the U.S., it's just money
Yeah.
and sponsorship always talk. So if you have the money, if you have the clout already, you have the advantage. You're already in. It's a little bit tougher for new things to break in, which is the thing that's
Yeah.
sometimes a little worrying about it. But yeah, Nathan.
I was just gonna say, I think though one of the things that makes allows Forest Green to work is it was and it still is a very small club. It's a small organization, so one guy like Dale can make that massive change. And yes, some people are gonna throw a fit and never come back to the ground, but eventually you'll get you'll get the fans back, and you'll attract new fans. Like I'm trying to like imagine an NFL team, for example, just saying, oh, we're going all vegan now, we're going carbon neutral, and I just think chaos chaos, it's just too big.
Yeah, Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys would be like, nope, you're not going to do that.
Right.
And he might marshal other owners and say, nope, that's not going to be good for the brand, so we kind of veto you. That's what I think.
I think it's going to be a gradual change, like
It has to be more grassroots, like coming from people demanding it.
And I think it'll get there. Like I went to a game a few months ago, whatever. And they actually had some great vegan options in the ground that I'd never, in the past you would never see vegan options in a sports stadium in the U.S. And they're coming. And as people start trying them who aren't vegan and start realizing like, hey, this is actually, I could eat this. I could live by this lifestyle. I think that's more of the path that the U.S. is going to take, a gradual shift, rather than something radical as Forest Green did, which is we're going green, we're going vegan completely. It has happened though. I think there's a few small clubs in the U.S. who have done it, but again, it's not. I can't see an NFL or NBA team doing it.
That's interesting. So it's almost like you think. In the US, it's within the existing system. So, often it's held up as progress. You can argue whether it is or it isn't, of people like Burger King and whatever doing a vegan option, and then lots of people go, "Oh, that's amazing," and then I'll speak to other people who say, "No, they're just after that one person in the vegan group. They don't want them to mess up the rest of the order."
Yeah, right.
Because they don't want them to take the other 5 people with them to a different restaurant. So they offer a vegan option so that the vegan will go with them.
Yeah.
And they can still sell 5 more burgers that they weren't going to sell.
Interesting.
That kind of thing. So actually there's, don't quote me, I'll get sued by KFC or somebody, but I saw somebody had put out a statistic about KFC's annual profits, since doing vegan options, and they were selling just as much meat, if not more.
Yeah, I was going to say I'd be interested to see the numbers on that.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. So it almost seems like, from what your perspective would be, that within the existing system there may be more vegan options, but it would be difficult for a sort of a maverick owner to turn around and say, right, that my club is going to stand for this.
Yeah.
I guess, and obviously they are not the same thing, and I'm not saying they are, but if I think about like the way, say, Colin Kaepernick was treated, and the NFL sort of almost rallied round and said, right, this person and what they stand for, we can't have in the league, essentially. Whether they said that, again, disclaimer, don't get sued. But whether that was said out loud, or the reality is that a very talented player is not playing.
Yeah.
And a vegan as well, right? He was vegan for, I'm not sure if he still is. I believe he's a vegan.
I believe so.
Yeah.
But is not playing for a reason that is off the pitch for their views and their choice of position. So you think that there might be the same kind of thing if a Dale Vince kind of character said, right, I'm going to buy the 49ers or something.
Yeah, the NFL, just like you said, the NFL has to agree on any new owner. And so if someone like Dale Vince came in, the NFL, the other owners of the NFL, I would never allow him.
Wouldn't allow it to happen.
Yeah.
Because there's too much money at stake from their
it's
sponsors.
a multi-billion dollar a year enterprise, the NFL.
Yeah.
You can say that for most sports, right? So it is about the bottom line, and we get frustrated at that too, because, we mentioned my odyssey to Texas, getting to the passport office from the airport. Everybody in Texas drives a tank. It's like you see giant SUVs. And I think that's one thing that's kind of been refreshing for us here. It's like we know the lanes are narrow, but it's nice to see people drive electric vehicles. It's nice for Nathan to roll around London in only like electric vehicle cabs, and that's the one thing where we feel like it's just being the progress is not fast enough in the U.S. Because if it's the way things are and the getting's good, people go for it, and maybe that long term isn't the best outlook or the best approach.
I'm asking you a big crystal ball type question here, but how does that possibly change? Because that's quite deep rooted societal issues, like and from a climate change point of view. I don't want to depress everybody, but we just don't have the time to sort of slowly evolve through these, and Dale's talked about this and has ripped up the rule book when it comes to sponsors. I mean, having a football club who has Sea Shepherd as a sponsor, which is essentially an activist group, would be unheard of, in this country 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So how do we, and he's what, a lone voice, sadly. There's not many other owners who are doing anything similar, or people in society doing anything similar. Everything is quite slowly evolve this, evolve that. What's the solution, do you think? Are we talking revolution on the streets? Is that the route we have to go down?
That's the
Yes.
thing. It's yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Good night.
No, I don't think. Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's only going to happen through gradual change, unfortunately. But like you say, we don't have time for gradual change.
Yeah, but I don't think Dale Vince is going to be the last visionary either. Like like you were saying, James, like it would have been unheard of, but he managed to do it.
Yeah,
even though
absolutely.
he's the lone voice.
Yeah,
and I still have that faith for our society as the United States as a superpower who has all this economic clout. Sometimes we like to believe that we can have all things, like we can have our lifestyle, things can be great, and we'll have a green future, right? That's going to be clean, and the environment will be great.
You can't. I think you just need. That's kind of Dale's whole mantra is you can do the things you love, but in a different way.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what we have to show people, that you can still do the thing. You can still go to NFL game and have an amazing burger and like whatever, but in a different way. In an eco-friendly way. There's Dale said, like you say, Dale said the blueprint for it. It's just other teams need to adopt it. And
I think a big thing, no matter what, is going to be finding the joy in it.
Yeah.
Like you said, because it is kind of it's a depressing topic. It can get to very dark thoughts.
It gets heavy.
A lot of pessimism. But we're trying to find the joy in this club, the joy in the sports that we love. I now have been inspired to try to find a genuine carbon offset program because I have to make up for this insane journey that I took just to get here. That's probably the most ironic part of it. Is, the flights I had to take to get to go see a green club. But I'm going to learn from it. Like I have to see, okay, what are some ways that, or what's going on out there, and you have to look for the positive and for what you can do and who you can be with. Like who are your people? Who's going to support you? Who can you build a community with? And, I think that's probably the way forward. Is anything guaranteed? No, but I'd rather be sitting here talking to you, James, with Nathan on the Buddy Vegans podcast, talking about how it's changed our lives for the better, than just sitting at home.
Yeah. And just try to stay optimistic, as things have changed dramatically very quickly, which is a good thing. And so if you think there's going to be an exponential change it. There's still, I don't know, there's room for optimism if you do take a step back and look at how much things have changed a year ago, 5 years ago to now. I think that's how I stay optimistic anyways. Like I see good things happening. Things are changing, not at the rate they need to yet, but maybe, there'll be an exponential change. And so we'll get there eventually because more people will change at a faster rate than have so far in the past.
And I think sometimes I'm guilty of anyway, looking at the big systems in play, big businesses, so on and so forth, and being disheartened that they aren't moving fast enough, rather than looking at, like you were saying about speaking to people who are in the supporters club who would never have entertained veganism years before, And because of their involvement with this club and other people at a grassroots level, other people who are involved in the club, they've changed their lives and are then influencing others. And so I guess, when you look at it from a grassroots perspective, there's room for more optimism. And I think if you're always looking for a solution, you might not find it.
Yeah.
if you look sort of sideways at each other, we're probably more likely to influence other people than big businesses are.
100%.
Yeah, and it's not going to be one solution either. When you work to build community, you're going to find many solutions. And Nathan and I, are privileged to work with young people, so we see the ideas that they have. The energy that we have. We're old fogey, elder millennials, so we'll be hobbling down the street soon enough. But yeah, I just got to stay optimistic. I think there are going to be visionaries like Dale Vince. There are going to be people that want to get the word out like you, James, and talk about, the significance of being vegan. So, being able to communicate that sort of thing. 'Cause it's not just one type of skill that's going to be needed.
And Shelb said, that's another reason that I'm optimistic is we do work with young people. And when I was young, when I was a teenager, I didn't even know of veganism as a concept or even vegetarian. I couldn't imagine. There's people that actually don't eat meat. That was completely foreign to me. Now, all of the young people we know they're very aware of veganism, and a lot of them, some of them practice it. Several others would like to, but they live in a house, where their parents cook for them and they don't really have choice. But they always say, when I get out of here, when I go off to university, I'm going to become vegan. And it's that never existed when I was in school. And so the culture is absolutely changing in the right direction. It's just how fast is it going to, how fast is it going to happen?
Yeah. The hope's in the kids.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's your problem now. But no, actually, I want to give a shout out to younger people as well, because I can remember when I was young and growing up, there was a big push around the 90s of hey, recycle, take these actions that are good for the planet. And the emphasis was always on individual responsibility. And again, sometimes I think that can go to a negative place, like Nathan had mentioned, where it's you are judgmental of others. Oh, you didn't make the choice to be vegan, you're bad. So I think sometimes when we had that individual responsibility way of thinking, it was easy to go down those paths. But young people today have a more sophisticated worldview. They say well, hey, we don't have an option for vegan food or vegetarian food in this place, or at home I don't have it, but I'm interested in looking into it.
Yeah.
And they understand it's hey, the reason that things are this way is because there's a system that provides incentives to do things the way they've always been done and not change. And so I'm just really happy to see that awakening away from and I still I'm susceptible to it. It's oh man, I was thinking, man, I took those flights. How much should I personally destroy the planet today? Or can I recycle my way out of this? But I know that's not the way. It's about trying to build substantive change with other people, and having the society and the conditions be better, rather than just I'm going to make sure I recycle every day. I'm never going to get another plastic bag in my life. I'm going to do my best to do those things, right? Bring my own containers, recycle. But I know that alone isn't going to do it.
Yeah. That's a really interesting point, actually, that when we look back, because we're similar ages, I guess, when we look back at that sort of era, early 90s, and that kind of individualistic response to climate change, or global warming, as it was probably more called back in those days, was all part of the same systems. All the language of the same system was well, this is your fault to sort out, even though there's 100 companies that are causing 70% of the world's emissions, but it's your issue to sort out. And like you say, I think that kids now, if I think about my nieces and nephews, have got a much more sophisticated view that says, yes, I need to take individual responsibility for the things within my control, but actually I need to also apply whatever voice I have, whatever pressure I have, to those in power to change those systems that are causing the harm, which I think is a really interesting point you make.
Yeah, and I just hope we can support them well enough, I think that's kind of the real challenge. And again, that's why I think it's a perfect mix of football and veganism and climate is it's 11 guys on the pitch. You can have a good game and a bad game if you're 11 players on the pitch. Sometimes you need the 12th the 12th player in the stand, right? So it's together that you've faced the tough times and you celebrate the awesome times, which we're hoping to do on Saturday against Bristol Rovers, and if Jared gets promoted to League One. But that sense of like, hey, this can be a social thing. You don't have to go it alone, and it may be hard, it may be difficult. You have to ask questions that aren't like comfortable, but you don't have to do it alone. You can do it together, and yeah, I think that's been the most heartening thing. So thinking about this club helps to keep the pessimism and sort of like the sadder parts of it at bay for me.
Yeah, and just thinking about turning back to sort of football through that as well. The potential if Forest Green get promoted on Saturday, which they're likely to do, touch wood, or they have a chance to do, should we say? There's an opportunity to. They need a draw or more. The potential for the positive stories that will generate and the interest in the club and they'll no doubt come with it lots of quote unquote banter and all the rest of it, but within that there'll be some understanding of, well, what is it that this club do that's different? Who are they? Who's this Dale Vince? Who is Sea Shepherd on the back of their shirts? That will be introduced to a whole new audience, and that's really exciting. Even if you don't like football, there's an organisation who have the ability to put themselves in front of a lot more people with names like Sea Shepherd that people who listen to this might know more than they know football.
Yeah, it's like the extra motivation for us to root for a club like this is the better they do, the more the word gets out. If they're in League One, like you say, they're gonna have such a wider audience than they have now. If they go to the championship, which is the goal, huge, massive audience to spread the word. So when you're rooting for the club, you're not just rooting for the people that you know and love to succeed. You're also rooting for the message to get amplified. And yeah, when they go League One, that's going to happen.
And whether folks like it or not, football has a lot of eyeballs on it. So
yeah,
that's the truth. So why not? And it is an avenue that hasn't really been explored by anybody else apart from Forest Green. So
yeah,
just we're getting close to time to wrap up, but I want to turn right back to Forest Green and your particular personal journeys. How have the club kind of welcomed you in? Because haven't you got some proper title now with your podcast, like unofficial, official supporters podcast of the year or whatever it is.
I believe we're allowed to put OBE or MBE after our names now.
The Queen came down. And
we did get knighted yesterday. Not a joke. We actually
got
did.
knighted. We got knighted.
Not knighted by
the Queen.
Knighted by the FGR Supporters Club.
Supporters Club, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But no, we're the official podcast of the Forest Green Rovers. But yeah, the club has just been amazing. And it's like, I don't know why, because we're just two idiots who do about 90 minutes of nonsense a week, loosely based on football, but really just having fun, around the culture of the club. They've been just so warm, so kind, so welcoming to us. It's been unbelievable.
And at all levels, whether it's, Dale Vince or Henry Stalen's the CEO. They welcomed us on match day on Monday into the director's box to have a little bit of vegan food and to kind of meet some people before the match. And then we spent the match in the South Stand with the fans. And man, what's the term they use, Nathan? When things are going well?
I think I can say that on here.
Oh, no, okay. Oh, you're thinking of that other term. No, but, we celebrated 2 goals on Monday.
Oh, limbs.
Limbs, there you go. That's the one we were looking for, limbs.
But yeah, no, so it's not just the club that's been so great
people,
to us, but the people, both the fans and the players and the coaches, everyone has been just so kind to us. It's
kind of hilariously, everybody was asking me, oh, so you made it. Everybody knew about my passport from, the guy in the South Stand, with the great nickname, to Rob Edwards, who we saw, the manager. We just happened to see him outside the ground when we arrived because he was doing a promotional thing for an electric van outside.
Yeah,
we just got to, dap him up real quick. And he's like, oh, you made it. So the fact that everybody knew about it, it was just like, this club is just something else. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, because we've been blown away. We were brought in because of the vegan stuff, because of the eco stuff, but the culture of the club, the community, the family is just unbelievable. So anyone out there, if you're looking for a football club to support, and you're obviously vegan, I would assume if you're listening to this podcast, I mean, Forest Green Rovers have it all. Incredible stands off the pitch, incredible humans, involved with the club, and then great football too, going up to League One.
Well, but what better place to wrap up? Wonderful stuff. So they play Bristol Rovers on Saturday, and that's the chance to get promoted. You'll both be there.
We will be there, baby.
For 2 matches. So
Two matches, the men's game and the women's game.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're there Saturday, is that right as well? Yeah. Amazing. And then when are you back in New York?
Sunday.
Unless I leave my passport somewhere.
Whistle stop. Unless it's expired between.
They only gave me a passport that lasted for 5 days. I'll be like Cinderella again.
Look, chaps, it's been amazing chatting with you again. Thanks for coming all the way to the UK to come on the Bloody Vegans podcast.
Yeah,
it's amazing. What an honour.
James, an honor and pleasure to meet you in person finally. And it was a blast. Thank you.
It has been awesome. And safe travels and best of luck to Forest Green for the weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, James. Take care, man.